March 16th, 2023. This is the S&P 500 eFutures 2000 tick chart on the Thinkorswim platform. You don't have to watch this entire video. If you're just interested in where I thought I saw trades as well as where I took my trades, just go down to the description below. This is how the chart looked like today. It kind of had in the pre-market kind of this choppy action, and then it shot down. This is how I marked up my charts. So it's hard to see, but there is top and bottom of a trading range that I drew here to mark off the bottom and the top in the pre-market hours. I only took one trade today. It was a winning trade. I'll go through that. Let me clear this out. This yellow line is actually the 100-day simple moving average, and this orange line is the 100-day simple moving average. This yellow line is the 200-day simple moving average. Now, when you trade price action, you don't really care about those lines. And I don't really use them as a basis to take a trade. I just like to know that they're there in case I'm chasing a runner or I'm in a trade or I'm about to take a trade and the setup might be a little sketchy. It's just one more thing to look at, mainly just because these don't come into play very often, but when they do, there are a lot of other traders out there that do take them into account. They use them as resistance or as support. So I just want to know that they exist just in case there's a strange anomaly that might occur, or it reinforces some kind of entry that I'm looking at. So just pay no attention to those. This is the open at the regular trading hours, and this is the close of the previous trading day. So that's how I saw the chart today. There was actually quite a big measured leg, one up here, and then I kind of found a second one here. Although when this happened at the time, I only saw one, so I wasn't sure if it actually make this super aggressive move all the way to the top. Turns out it would. And then I did see some smaller moves in between, and then as well some trading ranges. So let's get into the trades. So this is kind of what the pre-market looks like. I don't trade the pre-market just because I'm in Pacific Standard Time, and I don't see the need for myself to wake up at like 5 a.m. to try to get any trades. Volume here is usually lower than regular trading hours. So this is just a commitment and just a decision I've made that I'm not going to go and kill myself just to wake up and trade in the way AM hours to see if I can get any trades. I'd rather just do my usual thing in the regular trading hours. So this is kind of what I saw, a good trend channel cutting down. It confirms better on the bottom side, like 3, 4, 5 times. Top side's a little iffy because it never really confirms. I mean, it just has 2 points, but it didn't confirm with the third time. The first trade I saw was actually here right on the open. And right when this occurs, I just kind of show you what I saw in real time, or what I kind of saw as things were unfolding. EMA is pushing prices down, so I saw this as a potential trading range. So I drew this initially because it touched on the bottom pretty well. And at the top, I wasn't too sure if it's actually a little bit lower, a little bit higher, but I settled on this. So I thought, okay, maybe it's a first new high here, and right here you're going to see a first entry long, but it's a pretty crappy finishing candle, but you don't have an entry. Comes back, goes up, breaks above the EMA, touches the top of the trading range, comes back down. And then here, I do see a new high again, touching the top of the trading range. First entry long. Here's a potential second entry long. I thought this might be a possible trade because this is actually a new low here. And you could consider, even though there's one tick below here, I grouped these together. So I said this big one leg up. And again, there's a small one tick below this guy, so technically it could be first entry short, second entry short, but this is very close together, and I just decided to count it as one. So I said all the way up, first entry short, pulls back up, second entry short. So here, there is a potential for a second entry long. As soon as it breaks one tick above, it'll confirm. And this is a second entry short, but it's coming back up. It could turn into a failed second entry short. So in a situation like this, one tick above this guy is going to both confirm two possible outcomes, a second entry long and a failed second entry short. So if I was to take this, I didn't though, I'd have my trade entry one tick above, because there's also enough room to the top of the trading range, and you would have gotten your scalp out if you're just scalping a couple of points. Prices continue moving up, now breaks out of this trend channel, which, I really only trusted the bottom as a support. I wasn't really trusting the top as resistance yet because it never confirmed the third time. Then I saw, okay, this is a potential one leg up. comes out, creates this trading range, but I don't see any good entries. And here I decided to copy it, and maybe there's a second potential measured move. This dotted line is the midline of the high and the low created in the pre-market, which coincidentally came really close to this measured move. So I knew if it got up to here, there's a chance it might reject. So I'd be keeping my eye out for potential short if the setup will look correct. So prices continue chopping around. I draw this trend channel. It's respecting it somewhat. It doesn't fit as nicely as I'd like. It breaks out, and I'm looking for a new high, and it kind of does. It kind of makes this measure move, hits the midline of the trading range, and it pulls back. But I didn't see any good setup to actually take an entry on. You could argue this is a new low, first entry short, and technically there's a second entry short, but I just didn't like the looks of this candle as this, this is a signal bar technically. This ended very bullish, then it fought its way all the way back down, but it's inside of this guy. So it never really broke out either way. So it doesn't give me a good warm and fuzzy that's a setup worth taking, especially when the market will offer other setups that are just more clear, won't leave you stressed. Because yes, it would have worked, but who's to say next time it would work or it would just fail on? So I just left it alone. Prices continue moving down. I draw this trend channel. There's no setups, chops around. And I'm just watching carefully. I don't see anything that I like. Comes all the way down, and then this is when the huge rally starts. So technically you could say, okay, well, how could you have played this huge rally? Because you're going to see all the way up. I don't see any very good, clear second entries. There are some hidden ones, but it's a little sketchy because it never comes back and touches the EMA. If it just came down and touched the EMA, then I'd feel a little more confident looking for those hidden second entries, because you could say this technically is a new high, and it pulls back, first entry long, and there's a second entry long. So this isn't really hidden, but it's also pretty far from this EMA. And at the time, I wasn't sure if this was the actual trend line, or could it actually be a little bit tighter here, because maybe I had it drawn at various times, differently, and it could break out and move up. So that was not clear as I'd like. Had it just came down to, at this bottom of the channel touched this EMA, then I feel confident there's two key entry points, but this is kind of just way up above. Unfortunately, I missed this huge, gigantic move. Now, if you just kind of jumped in at any point during this, you would have been right, but that doesn't mean it was a good trade. It just meant that you were right. You just kind of guessed, and even gamblers, when they guess on a roulette table, you're going to win from time to time. So it's unfortunate. This move happened really, really strong. These are small little candles indicating it's like a really strong trend. Now, when I ended up with this guy, I noticed it broke out and it was kind of still outside. It was not a big overshoot. It didn't pull back in. So that's when I decided, okay, maybe there's a second channel, kind of an overlapping one, because this one kind of fit pretty well. So I just kind of drew this one, but it was a little confusing for me that, is this one going to be respected, or is this one going to be respected? How is it going to break out? Is it going to pull back? Which one is it going to end up being the dominating one? It turns out, well, I didn't have to worry about that because I didn't see any good trades to enter on. Prices continue moving. I mean, you could say this is a new high, first entry long, second entry long, but it still hasn't touched the EMA yet. So it's like still very strong, but doesn't mean at any point it couldn't break. I mean, price action can do anything, but usually it follows a couple of, patterns or rules. But, the market still could throw you for a curve. And remember, all trades, even if they're high probability, they could still fail. High probability doesn't mean 100%. It just means it's more likely to work out, most of the time. So I did draw this measured leg, or this one leg up, and I thought, okay, well, as soon as I see a swing, I might copy it and put it down. So at one time I had it up here. This is the other measured move. I actually drew it up here, but then when it broke down, I moved it down to here. Prices continue chopping around. Yes, you could argue it's like a new high, first entry long, second entry long, but if you do that, there's no real entry here because it's a pretty bad signal bar. It broke out of this trading range, and not trading range, trend channel, and it could go back in, but I just didn't see anything I really liked or felt comfortable taking. So it continues moving up, chops around. I draw this smaller trend channel and I also drew this one. And right now I don't see any good entries, any good safe entries. It's just kind of, it's still respecting the EMA right now, which is great, but I don't see any good clean second entries until I get to this guy. So at one point I was wondering, is there a trading range, because it kind of respects this invisible resistance, but I couldn't quite get the trading range to fit that cleanly, either down here or up here, because up here maybe there's like a breakout. So I did have this at one time, and I was thinking, okay, well, this is technically a new high, first entry long. There's potential second entry long coming up. When it forms this guy, you do have a second entry long, but this bar is pretty bearish, and it's running right up to this resistance. And this is kind of like the high of day, the highest it's ever been, which is this guy. So if I took an entry just right here, or even after this guy closed, which is down here, and put it one tick above, I didn't feel comfortable with how much room there is to the top. Even though it's been clearly a very, very bullish day, I just thought, okay, well, it could also reverse. So I just kind of sat on my hands and just waited, because I just wasn't super confident on what I was seeing as a potential trade yet. So it turns out it goes up. Now I do see this higher low. So I see first entry long, second entry long. I do like this higher low, but I was a little hesitant, but I thought this might be a possible trade, because this closed very bearish, and now it's clearly above the EMA. Now, I don't know if this is throwing me for a loop, because again, this is potential trading range, but for sure there's some kind of resistance that's having issues trying to break through. And now this from here is even closer to the top, whereas back here, if I took it back here, I would have had a better entry. So here I thought, okay, this is a possible trade. If I were to enter, even though I didn't, I would have probably put my entry one tick below this original signal bar right here. Next candle, you see that I would have missed it. I would have missed this trade, because I would have been sitting down here waiting. More aggressive would have been up here, but you're also potentially buying the top of this trading range. So it's just something, it unfortunately didn't work out, and it just kept going. So then prices continue moving up, comes back down, and then I'm more confident that this trading channel is valid, because it touched, if you moved it up, you could probably have it touch 3 times, but I liked it just kind of where it was. And it kind of confirms at least 2 times up here. Continues moving up. It's riding against this EMA now. So this is actually a really great to take an entry, but I didn't really see a clean second entry to take. I mean, you could say there's a new high, first entry long, second entry long, or you could say first entry long, a visual comes all the way down, and then maybe take it here. But I wasn't quite, I didn't quite see it that way in real time. Now that I do, it just thought, okay, well, any of these might have been a reasonable entry to have taken. Okay, so then I actually see this new high, so the highest it's ever been, and then it makes a first entry. Let's zoom in. Makes a first entry, and then a potential second entry here. And it does. So it breaks one tick above. It closed above the EMA. It's being respected. So there's like 2 key entry points here. It's like, it's a pretty, nice that the signal bar, which would be this guy, closed above the EMA. And then this trade is going with trend, but I didn't take it at the time. I just kind of sat, couldn't believe what I was seeing, and I wasn't sure if it was really going to move, and it did. So this is kind of a missed trade, just due to inexperience and me not being smart enough to recognize it in time. So I see these and I miss them quite a lot. But I'm getting better and better at identifying them. So one day, I'll finally, be able to capitalize on it. But today wasn't the day. Prices continue moving, chops down nicely, two legs down, one first leg down, second leg down, but it's below the EMA. It's not enough for me to take a trade. Then I see a potential failed second entry long, because it's 1 leg up, 2 legs up, and it couldn't break past this. And technically, it's going to, in the next candle, you see that it does fail. What I didn't like about this is it is below the EMA, but look how strong the day has been. So depending on if you're trading off of this chart, not this chart, this trend channel, it could be a break, and it could try to make a new high. So I wasn't sure about it. This doesn't exist yet. This trend channel doesn't exist yet, so ignore him. But I wasn't sure, if it's failed second entry long, it's also potentially within this trading range. To take a short right here, I felt like you're going to be running into this guy. So I for sure didn't want to take that trade, just left it alone. I mean, it is a decent signal bar, but it's just the context it just didn't quite add up everything to me. Plus it was counter trend, as I mentioned before. So I skipped it. Looks like it would have worked for a scalp, and then you probably would have gotten a runner off of that. Comes down, chops up, it's coming back up, goes into this trading range, which I don't see a good entry, good anything. Price is moving, and it comes down. Now it comes down to this guy. So I actually drew this and touched here and here. I actually had this a little bit lower, cutting to the bottom of this, but then I ended up kind of having him touch here and just had this small little overshoot just so I can get 3 confirmations or 3 touch points. Up here, I wasn't quite sure if it was a slight overshoot above, so I might have had him actually have him down here at one point, then I kind of dragged him up a little bit. This is dragged up later when you see what happens with the rest of the trading day. Prices continue moving up. Now I see a potential fail second entry short. So it's like the bulls have come back in. So I see a first entry short, second entry short. There's actually a pretty decent second entry short right here. You have enough room to the EMA. What I didn't like is it is kind of in the middle of this channel. So I wasn't sure if it was like to take a short. Yes, it could come back down, and technically you could have had this. If you'd drawn another channel in here, you know, it could have been a touch above, but I certainly thought about that, but I didn't think to take a trade. But then when it came down and immediately reversed, I saw a failed second entry short. It has a pretty bearish signal bar right here. And then when it had to fight all the way back up, it didn't touch the EMA. If it had touched the EMA, I would have been more inclined to take the trade, or if this bar had actually just been a little bit smaller, but it was like a big move. To enter like 1 tick above, even let's say that this candle formed on the next candle, you have your order sitting 1 tick above here. It's just your stop would have to be way down here, which is a pretty big risk that I just didn't want to attempt and avoid. So it turns out it would have worked. Prices continue moving up, and here I see a potential trade here. So it's like new high, first entry long, second entry long. It's kind of like making a double top here. Now, prices have moved from the bottom of this channel, you know, kind of touched up, came back down and made a second touch back up. So now it's kind of at the EMA. It's kind of at the midline of this channel. So I wasn't sure right here, this little dotted guy here. I wasn't sure if it was actually going to be a good trade to take in real time. And so had I did take it, because it is a decent signal bar, if it closed much stronger, I think I would have put an order here. And then once this formed, then I knew it was going to probably bounce back up. But usually I think it might make, if you count this as just one leg, it might bounce up, but I'm thinking it might come back down and touch this. So this wasn't quite like I didn't quite have that much of a heartache for not taking this trade, just because there is one leg, 2 legs, but this all could be considered as one big leg coming down. And so it might be ready to form a second leg, you know, like it looks like it might be like this as one leg, and it might come bounce up and then create a second leg down. So I certainly didn't want to tempt it. Turns out, you know, it would have worked because it just bounced off this midline and it looks like it's going back to the top, but that's okay. That's a trade that I'm willing to just pass on. It goes up, and then I draw the second trend channel now because it looked like it was fitting pretty well. Breaks out, comes down, and I draw another trend channel here. You can see it has maybe one leg, pulls back a second leg. I'm just waiting. It's falling into this trading range now. I established a trading range once I see this second touch. I said, okay, maybe there's something here. And the top here actually had a little bit higher, cutting through the top of here because I didn't like this overshoot so early. But then I saw these 2 confirmations, so then I just dragged it back down and said, okay, maybe there is a small overshoot here. Prices continue moving. And this is where I took my one and only trade of the day. I saw, okay, it's respecting the bottom of this trend channel. And it looks like it's being respecting this trading range. So what I saw was this is a break, a failed breakout, comes back in, it's first entry short, and it comes up, and I'm seeing a potential second entry short because it couldn't break above this guy. So what I did was when I saw this break below, technically it's a first entry short, second entry short, I said, okay, second entry short, but it also closed kind of above the EMA. EMA doesn't really matter right now, but it closed above the midline. And I'm thinking, okay, don't take this trade yet. Just keep watching. I didn't like how the signal bar looked, which is this guy, because it's very bullish when I'm trying to go short, which is not a good thing. I waited for the trigger bar, so like maybe it's going to confirm and close low and confirm that it's going to have enough time, enough room to make it back down to the bottom of this trading range. So I didn't like it. I waited for this guy. When I saw this guy flash down and close, I liked that. I said, okay, it's actually looks like it's coming back down. I'm going to try to enter with one tick below the original signal bar, which is this guy. So right around here, and hope that the next candle comes up, picks me up, and then continues back down. And also reduces my risk a little bit because then my stop is going to be right up here. So it does come up, pick me up because my entry was right here, and then it goes down. I was able to get my core out and also my runner. I think my runner got triggered right around one of these two bars. Well, let's just go take a look. So here's my entry, 39.85.50, which is about right here. And then I got taken out down here, and then my runner got stopped out right there. I think I dragged my runner. No, actually, my runner just got 4 points out of it, so that was pretty nice. Then the rest of the day, I actually didn't see as many good, clean setups, so I'm just going to rush through it because this video is already pretty long and I ramble. So there are some like second entries for sure, like a new high, first entry long, second entry long, but for various reasons I didn't like it because this is a decent signal bar, but right now it already broke out of this trading range and looked like the bias kind of is turning negative, so I didn't take that trade. This also could be a new low, first entry short, second entry short, and this is technically where your signal bar is, but it's running right against this trading range. So it might break back in, so I didn't want to be selling at the low of this guy. So I skipped that one as well. Then prices continue moving up. See new low here, first entry short, second entry short, or I can see it as one big move, first entry short, and then it's respecting the EMA, then it comes up a second time in the second entry short. But seeing it that way, you are skipping over a couple of ticks that do, set up these tiny micro second entries. I just didn't like that. So it's also far from the EMA. There's enough room to make it down, but this would be your signal bar of this visual second entry short. And it's not a very good signal bar. So I left that one alone. It's kind of getting close to the end of the day. Same thing here. You see a new high here, first entry long, second entry long, but this is also the signal bar. It will close below the EMA. So when you waited for this candle to close, it's already pretty high. And, to take an entry, I just wasn't quite sure. And right around 12:30, it's kind of, you do see, as I said, some more setups, but I didn't think they were clean enough. And just kind of the rest of the day, it just chops around and moves pretty much sideways into the close. So most of the trades today that I found that I thought were, from my perspective, were good entries, kind of happened more about midday during this big move, this small gradual move. I took my entry here, took my one trade there, and it's a little unfortunate, just probably due to my experience. Oh, I just want to also mention that it did make the measured move from here up to here, of obvious leg, and then swung down, and I started here up to here. So it made another pretty obvious, second entry, not second entry, measured move. Now, as I was pointing out, it's unfortunate that I didn't quite see a good setup, or just my inexperience didn't tell me there was a good setup down here to be able to ride this big, big, big wave up, because this is a pretty remarkable move. It went from like 3,900 all the way up to about 3,955. So that's about 50 points right there. So that's pretty phenomenal. But I did see some entries here that for one reason or another I didn't take. Again, due to inexperience, or I just didn't recognize it in real time, but I'm getting better at that. The only one I did recognize was this one. So it's just kind of a small little modest trade. So ideally, if you guys saw better setups or you saw better candles or your chart looked better, hopefully, you were able to capitalize on some of this that I wasn't able to. So hopefully that was helpful.